All right, hello and welcome everyone to another World Pop Vinyl collection update video here. I know it's been a while. It's just been super busy time of the year for me, unfortunately, but the collecting hasn't slowed down, just my bandwidth to make videos. I figured the best way to get back into it would be to do a simple collection update. So I've got some pretty cool stuff in here, at least in my opinion. Hopefully you all will enjoy checking this stuff out. And I figured to start with some electronic music to kick it off. And I have, this is called Atlas of Green by Dialect. I got this on discogs, and if you don't know Dialect, this is a alias from an artist named Andrew P.M. Hunt. This was released in 2024 on the Revenge label, and I actually was following them on discogs at the time, got the emails, check this out, and for whatever reason just didn't dig in, but it's been served up to me a lot since then from people who, you know, kind of survey and review electronic music from the past couple years. And I've since gone back and picked it up. So just to briefly talk about it, yeah, it's electronic music, but it kind of has a lot of acoustic elements to it. I'm not sure if Andrew is sampling them or, you know, kind of playing them and then looping them. There's no instruments credited on the album at all. And I would say this is maybe a little bit more on the ambient side, but I don't really consider it that ambient. It's not, you know, there's drums. When you hit drums, I feel like that kind of takes it out of the ambient area. To me, it kind of evokes, like, if you remember from back in the earlier 2000s, like the Books, some of that stuff. At times it kind of hits like Sigur Rós or even like Boards of Canada territory, depending on kind of the way the vocals are being manipulated. There's some vocal sampling in here. And yeah, I'm pretty sure I got this one from Red Scroll on discogs as part of a order with a couple other things. And then I also picked up another one from his that I haven't dug into as much yet, called Advanced Myth, and this one's from 2022. So I think these two records are connected thematically, and I definitely heard this one first when I started digging in. I haven't dug into Andrew's other music. I think he's got a lot of other stuff out there, but both of these are great. But in particular, I would start with Atlas of Green if you're interested. Another one here that's definitely more on the ambient-ish side, although, I mean, maybe that's not the right way to put it, but this is an album by Vladislav called Multila, and the release itself, this is a 2022, or sorry, from 2020, a German label called Kepler put this out, but it's a compilation, reissue, remaster of two EPs that were originally released on a CD in Germany in 2000, and those EPs are called Huone and Ranta. And yeah, I discovered this trying to research more music that sounded like the Jan Jelonik's loop finding jazz records. So yeah, I guess you'd call this kind of like micro house. This is a bit darker than that, especially the first track is really moody and dark and very ambient-ish, but after that, the tracks really open up and a lot of times find a really great groove. It definitely scratches that itch. So if you like that Jan Jelinek record, I would definitely recommend this, and also looking deeper into Vladislav Delay. I've got a few other of his records on my want list right now. But yeah, great pickup. I think this was also from Red Scroll, if I remember right. I've got a new record here. Oh, picked up two. No, this is a... There we go. This is Placid Angles with... oh, can you see that? Yeah. Placid Angles Canada. So this is a 2026 release that I found on TikTok, I think. Someone talking about new electronic music so far that they're liking this year. I can't remember the creator, unfortunately. But yeah, never heard of this before. Placid Angles is a alias of the electronic producer John Beltran, who also I'm not familiar with. I like electronic music, but I don't know it as deeply as a lot of other people do. Yeah, so yeah, 2026 release out of Turkey on a label called Oath. So a little bit hard to get in the US. I can't remember where. I might have also gotten this at Red Scroll, to be honest. Sometimes they're pretty good at getting stuff from Europe brought in as part of that order. And it's really interesting. It reminds me a lot of some of the electronic pop music that was kind of popular in the late 2000s, early 2010s. Definitely some of the tracks really remind me of, in particular, there was this kind of like blog era hit by a band called JJ called Kills. and you'd have to dig that up somewhere online. I'm sure you can find it on YouTube. So definitely in the beginning, it was really reminding me of that. And then it really opens up into more just like bigger electronic. It's a really, really good driving record, or like walking around. Very optimistic, and overall just super beautiful. I have not been able to play this in the house yet because we got a cat and he chewed through the wire that powers my turntable. So I'm currently waiting for a replacement, but I've been listening to a lot in the headphones off streaming. Awesome album, and definitely an artist that I will be digging into, because if his other stuff is kind of like this, I might be interested in grabbing it. All right, coming off of electronic now into some more indie-ish or rock, kind of the type of stuff I go for. One of my big finds of the last few months, or since the last update, the Unicorns, Who Will Cut Our Hair When We're Gone. This is a 2003 first pressing out of Canada on the Alienate Recordings label. And the way that you know that is by the swirl here, or by the color of the vinyl. So the first pressing was a pink and white marbled splatter, and the subsequent ones are different colors. So great use of colors to actually indicate pressing order, which I think I talked about in a previous video. And if you don't know this band, this is probably like the only album, a proper album, that you would know from them. I think they have some other music that wasn't put on vinyl. It was on CD only, kind of like smaller recordings. But yeah, this is kind of an indie rock staple from the early 2000s. And this band, I don't know if he led it, but Nick Thorburn was part of it. And you might know him from Islands, who went on to make a ton of music later and have some more kind of, I think, broader appeal and hits. This is kind of like weirder. You can hear some kind of proto Islands sound in here for sure, in some of the instrumentation at times, especially like the higher points of the record. But then it just gets really weird. It's great, very lo-fi. And you might also know Nick Thorburn, by the way, for doing all the music for Serial, the podcast, if you listen to that. So he's had an interesting career since, but this is a great record. And just saw it at Human Head in Brooklyn on the wall. Checked it out, the splatter looks right, and picked it up. And I thought it was a pretty good price. Another one kind of in the rock, although very different style, I got recently a Japanese band called Toe, and this album is called Hear You. And let me just scroll my notes here to make sure I get this right. Yeah, here we go. So yeah, this is 2015 pressing on a US label called Top Shelf Records. I don't think they pressed this one. The first pressing was not in Japan, at least from what I can tell. And this is a first press. It was 498 were put on this black in yellow vinyl, which looks kind of weird, especially when it's rotating on the turntable. I did spin this a few times before the cat disrupted our ability to play stuff in the house. And Toe is a Japanese kind of post-rock, math rock band, though this album, I would say, doesn't fit neatly into either of those categories. It's one of their more recent records. They're not super prolific. They don't release that often, at least from what I've seen on discogs. This is super chill. At times the guitar, although I guess it might be kind of math rocky, it also kind of feels almost emo-ish at times. I think like Pinback, if you know that band. But yeah, cool drums on here, but nothing that's like too over the top. So yeah, I think if you put this on to someone who was super into math rock, they wouldn't immediately go there identifying it as such. And yeah, likewise for post rock. So I have not checked out any of their other albums, but I found this on TikTok also a couple years back, and it's been on my want list for a while, and one finally popped up at an affordable price in the US, and I grabbed it. Here's a weird one. TikTok has been doing me a lot of favors in the music discovery. I don't know if any of you have had as much luck, or if I feel like a lot of people who are record age are probably not even on TikTok anyways, but I am. And yeah, so this was a cool one. This is a 2026 pressing of Black Tape 2 by Ohkami no Jikan, and this is on the La Musica label in Japan, and then a label called Black Editions out of LA. And that's a label that is specializing in re-releasing the quote unquote definitive vinyl editions of underground Japanese artists, primarily from the PSF record label. And this was originally released in like on handmade tapes in Tokyo in 1992. I didn't write down the name of like the main guy here, but he's been involved in a lot of other stuff that I'm not familiar with. But yeah, I heard about this record on TikTok, checked it out. It's on streaming, and I thought it was really cool. And I'm pretty sure you can probably still buy this on Bandcamp. I'll link to it. But yeah, it's got a very heavy psych feel. Like at times it kind of feels like Led Zeppelin. At times it kind of feels like a little bit like Brian Jonestown Massacre to me as well, especially the first track. It's a little bit bluesy. It has like this really chugging heavy bass that adds a fuzz to it, like a heaviness. Yeah, it's not the type of thing I would normally go for necessarily. Like I definitely don't consider myself like a psych music fan broadly, but I listened to this a lot on a flight and I really liked it. And then yeah, got it on Bandcamp. All right, moving on to some jazz. Here's one I picked up. I think this is from last year, actually. I figured I would find it in a store around the city eventually. This is How You Been by SML, which is a jazz quintet, I believe, led by the bassist Anna Butters. And you can see here it's on the international anthem label. They always do this Obi strip on their releases. And also features like some other players that you might know. Like for me, I knew Gregory Ullman from some of his crossover with like Sam Wilkes and Sam Gendel. And then others who I'm not so familiar with, Booker Stardrum on drums and Josh Johnson on sax electronics, and Jeremiah Chu, who does some live sampling and synths. So yeah, it's a jazz quintet, but they do incorporate electronic elements and sampling and looping. It's overall pretty chill, occasionally funky, very playful throughout. There's lots of shorter tracks. So if you hit a part where you don't like there's a few points in the record where it gets a little bit like what I would call like circus music-y, sometimes jazz, especially like avant jazz or, modern jazz, and kind of veer into that to me. And I don't think it sounds that great, but everything kind of resolves and moves on really quickly. So if there's a pocket you don't like, it doesn't like drag on for 10 minutes and ruin half a side of a record. So yeah, overall pretty cool. And I have the other SML record as well. And Anna Butters I know from featuring on like some of the Jeff Parker stuff too that I've collected. So that's how I kind of found this. And I picked it up at 14A Records in Bayonne, just a short drive away from me. All right, things are a little out of order here, so I'll be jumping around, but I found this at, where did I find this one? I think I found this at Boom Service in the city. Man, I don't know. I can't remember now. Oh no, sorry. I found this just last weekend. I found this at Ergot. That's where. So we did an impromptu trip into the city on Sunday, get some ramen. We were over in the area where Ergot and a lot of the other record stores are in Manhattan that I like to go to. And I was just scrolled Instagram and saw that Ergot, they usually post stuff they're putting out for the day. They put this up there on their in their kind of display of what was going into the used bins. And so, we paid. I got the kid in the stroller and jumped on over to Ergot and grabbed not only this, but one other thing. So yeah, this is Playing by Old and New Dreams. And this is it's on the ECM label. What year is this? I may not have written it down, but I think it's like 75 maybe. But yeah, if you kind of know ECM and you know Don Cherry, you probably know this. There's a couple Old and New Dreams records that he did, and it's just kind of cool post-bop, like not post-bop, maybe even like modal, you might say. It gets a little bit not too fusiony for my taste. I quite like it. I've been trying to collect a lot of the Don Cherry stuff, especially the cheaper stuff. This is a US pressing, not a German. And now that I have it, I'm definitely going to listen to it a lot more. Also on that Ergot stop, I grabbed Miles Davis in a Silent Way, just another like Miles Davis staple. And this is a US first press. You can see the the Columbia 2i there. And overall in pretty good condition. The cover is doing that thing. It's kind of like flaking and flecking away. So I'm probably not going to take it in and out of the sleeve much at this point. But the record itself is in really great condition. I have not been able to play it because the cat destroyed it. I'm still waiting, like I said, for the power cord. But once I get a chance, I'll play test it. But I'm hoping it plays as well as it appears, like a strong VG+. So, super happy to finally find that. I figured if I waited long enough, I'd find that in a shop for sure. All right, another shop that opened up kind of near me recently over in Newark. So one I'm going to start frequently more, called More Now. I picked up a few things from them on a trip over there I made specifically to check it out, because they have a pretty good like social media game. And so yeah, I made a dedicated short drive, 20 minutes. And right when I opened, it was already packed, which is really cool to see. And I grabbed a few things that they had up. One of them being Milestones, Miles Davis. I think this is 1958. And another just like kind of jazz staple that I wanted to have in the house. It's on the US Columbia. So this is a first mono. You can see the 6 eyes there. And this one I have played great. I'm super happy to find it and add to the collection. Along those same lines, now this one I got a little bit, I got myself into a little bit of trouble on this John Coltrane, My Favorite Things. So this is a 1962 US Atlantic pressing, which is supposed to be the first press, and it was tagged as a first mono up on the wall. So I went and took a look at it, being a new shop, checked the matrix numbers and everything, for as much as I was looking at in the store, looked right. Then I brought it home and looked a little bit closer. And yeah, it looks like it's one of those albums where, jazz is so tough sometimes if you don't know the labels that deeply. So the colors on the label are right. And the only thing that's wrong is this little swirl here. It's supposed to be inverted the other way, like black around a white swirl. So if it was a true first mono, it would have that. The matrix numbers and stuff would all be pretty much the same. And yeah, so this is, as best I can tell, a third mono pressing that most likely came out in the same year. So kind of a tough one. I don't think actually the price difference is that high on it, depending. So yeah, I got myself in a little bit of trouble, but I made up for it elsewhere, which we'll get to. Also, while I was there, I just picked up Monk's Dream, just another piano jazz album I wanted to have in the house. And I also picked up Steve Kuhn's Trance, which I was just tore apart like my house trying to find it. It must be misfiled somewhere in my shelf. It wasn't downstairs, and I couldn't find it with all the rest of my stuff I've acquired recently. So I don't know where I put it, but Steve Kuhn Trance, 1975, German ECM pressing, first press, I think maybe first and only. I'm not sure if they've repressed it. Found it there. It was an album that I was trying to learn more about ECM last year and checking out a lot of different creators on YouTube, what were their favorite ones. And then Stunty did one, and he mentioned that album. It's pretty cool. It's kind of like almost verges on being too prog for my taste, but it is restrained enough that I really liked it. And I've had it on my want list for a while. I honestly didn't expect to find it so easily. I feel like some of that ECM stuff has been evading me, even though it's not super expensive. And I found it there at More Now, along with this Monk record and those other two. So really good visit overall to the store. Great store. Probably one I'll try to go back to every 4 or 6 weeks. All right, so here's the last jazz one I'll talk about, and then we have some more like ambient new age stuff to round it out. But this was an interesting pickup. So yeah, obviously Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers, Moanin, one that has been on my want list for a while, especially as I was starting to get more familiar with Blue Note, kind of the staples of the label. So this is from 1959. It's a US first mono, I believe. So I found this in the bins at Boom Service in Brooklyn. And, you know, I know enough to look for like, okay, you know the label. If it looks like that, if it's the other label with the actual note over here, you know it's probably a later pressing. You know to look for things like the RVG, the Rudy Van Gelder stamp, to look for the ear and the dead wax. A lot of things that would indicate what an earlier Blue Note pressing would be. But it was priced really cheap. You know, it wasn't up on the wall. So for like comparison, at More Now, they had a super clean one of these up on the wall for like $600 or $800. And I've seen it, you know, floating in that price range depending on condition. It's not a record that I would say is like hard to find, but it's a record that's hard to afford. So yeah, I saw this in the Boom Service bins. I think it was either $50 or $75. And I thought, you know, I'm probably never going to, you know, pull the trigger on spending $600 or $800 on a super clean copy. I wasn't really sure it was a first press, given that it was, you know, just down in the bin there, and it was kind of priced like it might have been a later repressing. They didn't have any indication, but then when I took it home and hit the mic there, took it home and kind of dissected it, checked out a lot of the things that you're supposed to look at, like the placement of, you know, does it have a registered mark above note? What are the dates? Do they line up? And the only thing I could match this to was a first mono. Now, I'm not an expert, but I believe as best I can using discogs that this is a first mono. And the condition on the record itself, I would say, is like very VG-ish. Like I ran it through the cleaner, and on the beginning of side A, you definitely get a lot of crackle, especially in the quiet parts. But a lot of that goes away once the music picks up. And there's no pops, there's no skips. So I can tolerate a little bit of crackle. I don't know, maybe for some people that would be G+, but yeah, once it gets going, you just don't hear it, at least on my system. So the record itself seems to be in really good condition to my ear. And then, you know, the sleeve though, definitely got hit with some water damage. And I don't know how well you can see that, but yeah, possibly even some mold. I'm not sure if that's mold or if that's just like the degradation of the sleeve. So the sleeve is, you know, really poor, but I don't mind that as much as long as the record plays. So super thrilled to find that, even in, you know, this condition at that price. So hopefully that's a big win. And now just to round it out with some ambient stuff that I picked up. So continuing to add to the Harold Budd collection. This is one of the last ones I need, or maybe the last one, the White Arcades. I don't know if I wrote down what year this actually is from, but yeah, this is a first pressing. I think it's from 85, 88 on Land Records. So throwing that one in. Always love to put this stuff on in the evening when we're reading. And then one that I got turned on to from Dom, Seeking a Thread, Rainforest Music. So this was, I think Dom talked about this maybe last year or the year before, just as I was starting to watch his channel. This is a JD Emmanuel's 1982. It's a private press, and it's like electronic, new age, ambient music that's specifically composed for relaxation. So there's a lot of, I think it's on the inside. Yeah, it kind of has some prescriptive uses on some of the documentation that comes with the record, you know, saying use this as background music for massage or for counseling or for Tai Chi. And it's really cool. You know, I noted it down when he mentioned it. I think you can find it streaming on YouTube and thought it sounded awesome. Never really thought I would find it, or yeah, in the wild. And then I found a seller who had this along with two other things that have been on my want list. And so, you know, I figured now's the time to do it. So I grabbed that. Looks to be in great shape. Have not played it yet. because of the cat. And speaking of cat, so one of the other ones I got from that same seller is Ancient Leaves by Michael Stearns from 1977. And then Planetary Unfolding from, what year is this? From 1981. Both of these on the Continuum Montage label. And so I think I found these from perhaps even discogs, like just clicking and seeing things that discogs says, like, oh, if you like this, you might like that. And I've just got really taken in by the cover art. I mean, the artwork on this stuff is super cool. And they're both actually, I think Ancient Leaves is not so easily streaming, but of course you can get it on YouTube. But Planetary Unfolding is on most streaming services, I believe. And got super into it. I mean, it's kind of like spacey, experimental, electronic, ambient, lots of moogs and synths, occasionally some vocals. And yeah, especially, I mean, this one is like deep space. I was listening to it on a plane ride also, again, recently while reading. And just, yeah, music like this, I find great for reading too. So to have all three of those from the same seller, just made sense to bundle it up and try to get a little bit of a deal going. And, you know, I've been to WFMU now a couple times and across a lot of stores. I've never seen any of these. So I figured, you know, it's stuff that I want to have in the house and play. And this was it. Pulled the trigger. So yeah, that's it. Some really fun stuff in here. Excited to get the power chord hopefully tomorrow and start playing through some of it. And happy to be back sharing this collection update with you all. Hope you enjoyed. And yeah, I'll be back again soon. I have a video, probably a short one, that I will want to do talking about my humming guru that I picked up over the holidays. My experience with that, which overall I will say is pretty positive. And, you know, continue to do collection updates. Yeah, that's it. All right. Thanks, everyone. Hope you all enjoyed. And, you know, leave a comment below if you like any of this stuff or if I turned you on to anything that you ended up really enjoying. All right. Later, everyone.